There are two big things happening today, and we have clubbed them in this long session of about 2 hours. And I would like to take this opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome you all on behalf of Cesvi, Acted, Concern Worldwide, WHH, and HELVETAS. And also I would like, right in the beginning, to take you through the program today, because it's a good, long, about 2 hours program. So after the welcome note by Aisha Jamshed, Country Director, WHH, we are going to have the two launch presentations. First one is going to be for the Global Hunger Index, and then we will have the launch of Alliance 2015 Stakeholders Engagement Strategy for FNS. And after that, we are going to have an input from Brussels, which is the Alliance 2015 hub. And we also wanted to have a global perspective and international perspective towards that. And we are going to have from Antonia an input from Brussels. And after that, I'm looking forward to a very, very interesting panel discussion, which the title of the discussion is Making Food Systems Better and Strengthening International Cooperation Towards FNS for All. And we will be very pleased to share with you that a very diverse panel is going to join me today, which will be having the United Nations representation, international global donors representation, experts, consultants, and advocacy advisors. So it's going to be a wide range of participants who are going to be joining me for about 30 minutes. And after that, we are going to have our keynote speaker, Dr. Abid Saleri, who needs no introduction, and we'll go to his later to his detailed introduction. He's going to give us a keynote input on that. And after that, we are going to end this session, but maybe we will be happy and honored to have a video message by the Minister of State for Climate Change, Zafar Jagol, as well in today's session. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is all that we have for you this Pakistani afternoon, because most of us are joining in from different parts of the world. So welcome all the panelists, all the participants, and welcome all the viewers for taking our time and joining us for this interesting activity. I would now like to ask Aisha Jamshed. Aisha is the country director of WHH, to please take the floor and welcome all of us.
Thank you, Tawseek. Assalamu alaikum ji. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the world you're joining us from. On behalf of the Alliance 2015 members, I would like to welcome you all to the launch of the Global Hunger Index, where we will be focusing on the hunger issues that are pertaining to Pakistan in particular. And then we will transition to the Alliance 2015 Stakeholder Engagement Strategy, revolving around the food, nutrition, and security situation in Pakistan. Here, I would like to thank all the distinguished panelists, the presenters, and the audiences as well for your interests and joining us today. This particularly is going to be a series of events that we will be holding to explore the means of collaboration on these very important issues. We will basically be focusing on all the policy recommendations that have come out of the Global Hunger Index. As you're all aware, the hunger and nutrition are an increasing concern in Pakistan, and collective efforts are required to improve the situation. The Alliance 2015 has been operational in Pakistan for collective projects. I mean, individually organizations have been operational over a longer time, but as the Alliance, we have been operational for collective initiatives for over a decade now. And we are pleased to have all of you here with us today. Without further ado, I would like to hand the floor back over to Tawseek, and I hope that all of you would have a nice session. We will be able to have good exchange, and all the discussions and information that you find today are useful for the work in Pakistan. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Aisha, for this welcome note. And ladies and gentlemen, now this brings me to announce our session 1. And in our session 1, we are going to launch the 2020 Global Hunger Index. And we have a presentation, about 10 to 15 minutes presentation lined up for you. And for that, joining us from Berlin, Germany is Miriam Weimers. And Miriam is representing WHH. She's the expert on Global Hunger Index, and she's member of WHH Global Policy and Advocacy team. Miriam, welcome, and take the floor, please.
Hello, hello everyone from Berlin. Thanks Tausig, thanks Aisha for the introduction. Thanks for having me today, and thanks for organizing this very important and timely conversation. It's my pleasure to be with you today, and while of course, as I said earlier to the others, I would have really liked to be with you in person today. I'm glad to be able to at least virtually present the Global Hunger Index. And I hope to see the slides now. Nope. Can you go back one more, please? So let me start with a few words on the Global Hunger Index, or in short, the GHI. The GHI is a peer-reviewed report published by Concern Worldwide and Welthungerhilfe on an annual basis. And it's translated, disseminated, and discussed globally in cooperation with Alliance 2015 partners. The report measures and tracks long-term trends of hunger on a global, national, and regional level, with the aim to raise awareness and call attention to those areas of the world where hunger levels are highest and additional efforts are thus needed. And the ranking of countries that we provide hopefully then also provides an incentive to act and improve on the results. We present the GHI in various places around the world, from Berlin to Brussels to Islamabad today. And we use it as advocacy tool to discuss or to get into a dialogue on food and nutrition security with diverse stakeholders. So on the occasion of World Food Day, we just launched the 15th edition of the Global Hunger Index, and with only 10 years to go to reach the Sustainable Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goal 2, Zero Hunger by 2030, this year's report looks at the links between health and sustainable food systems. It also takes a closer look at the hunger situation in Nepal, a country that has achieved substantial progress, but also at the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a country that was just recently declared by the UN as the world's worst food crisis. Please go to the next slide. I don't want to bother you too much with methodology, but just a few words on how the index is calculated. Can you go one slide back? Sorry. There should back. Let's forward. So to capture the complex and there's something missing there. Anyway, I'm just gonna go ahead. To capture the complex and multidimensional nature of hunger, the index combines 4 indicators that are part of a set of indicators used to measure progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. And they do not only reflect calorie availability, but also the quality and the utilization of food. And these indicators are the share of the population that is undernourished, meaning insufficient caloric intake, as well as the child wasting rate, which is reflecting acute undernutrition, child stunting, reflecting chronic undernutrition, and as the most tragic consequence of hunger and undernutrition, we also include the under 5 child mortality rate. And this calculation then results on a score on a 100-point scale that shows the severity of hunger from low to extremely alarming. And I just wanted to mention at this point that the 2020 GHI includes data from the years up to and including 2019, which means the impact of COVID-19 is not yet reflected, but the report points to the areas of the world that are most vulnerable to a worsening of the situation due to the crises of 2020. I'd also like to mention that this year, more countries than usual did not have sufficient data to calculate the scores. And as these are often countries with conflicts or political instability, which we know are strong predictors for hunger, we wanted to address this gap, and so we provisionally categorized as many of those countries as possible based on available data. So this also shows that how important it is to have timely and accurate data to address and address hunger and put it on the agenda. Now you can continue on to the next slide, please. So let's have a look at the results. The good news here is that on a global level, hunger has decreased over the past 20 years. Many countries have made substantial progress. For example, Ethiopia or Sierra Leone have decreased their scores substantially by more than 25 points. And although the hunger level remains serious, this shows that it's possible to reduce hunger. However, the bad news, on the other hand, are that progress is way too slow. And with the current trajectory, at least 37 countries will fail to even reach low hunger levels by 2030. As you can see on this slide, too many people are still suffering from hunger and undernutrition. You can see here what that means for each individual GHI indicator. We also see this year that in 14 countries in the world, the year-long positive trend has recently reversed and the situation is worsening again, and amongst them countries as diverse as Venezuela, Timor-Leste, or Madagascar. So this means the outlook was already quite grim before COVID-19 hit. The number of undernourished people has been on the rise again for a few years already. And now the pandemic and its impact will further exacerbate this trend. On the next slide, you'll see how that looks on the world map. So even before accounting for COVID-19, we saw a sobering picture, and in more than 50 countries, hunger remains a severe issue. In 11 of them, the situation is alarming. In 40, it's serious. And it's possible that with complete data, one or more other countries would fall into these or the extremely alarming categories. And with a score of 24.6, Pakistan falls into the serious category, as you could just see. And as you can also see on this map, the situation is particularly worrying in Africa south of the Sahara and South Asia. On the next slide, you'll see that in both regions, even before COVID-19, 1 in 3 children was too small for its age, so stunted. Africa south of the Sahara is the world region with the highest prevalence of undernourishment, a figure that has increased again in recent years. But in absolute terms, the figure is highest in South Asia, where 255 million people are undernourished, which is more than 1/3 of all undernourished people in the world. South Asia also has the world's highest wasting rate. So children that are too not heavy enough for their height. On the next slide, you'll see that while the score for Pakistan falls slightly below the regional average for South Asia, it's still on the 3rd worst level in that region, and it has the 5th worst level in the wider region of Southeast and Southeast Asia. On the global ranking, Pakistan ranks 88th among 107 countries ranked, listed. The country has seen substantial progress, substantial improvements in the past 20 years. GHI scores dropped by more than 12 points from alarming to serious. And while these improvements are still too slow to reach the goal zero hunger by 2030, they still prove that it's possible to reduce hunger and should, be kind of an incentive or motivation to speed up the progress. On the next slide, yes, here you'll see that the improvements in the overall, in the aggregate score, reflect decreasing trends for all 4 indicators. However, despite the progress made, especially stunting among children, under 5 years remains very, very high in terms of its public health significance at 37.6%. And as with the disparities between regions and countries, national averages also mask significant inequalities within countries. And it's important to understand which population groups face particularly high challenges, which is often marginalized groups, indigenous population, rural-urban disparities. And if you look at the example of Pakistan, more than half of all children are stunted in the newly merged tribal districts. While in the capital region of Islamabad, on the other hand, it's about every 4th child. The mentioned countries, regions, and population groups are particularly vulnerable to the current overlapping health, economic, climate, and environmental crises. And in the report, we take a closer look at the Horn of Africa region, where persistent conflicts, political instability, and displacement are increasingly being met by weather extremes such as longer or more pronounced droughts and floods, which was this year exacerbated by the desert locust infestation and now COVID-19. Our country director there in Ethiopia said that there's basically no longer any time for recovery between crises. And I guess this kind of sounds a bit familiar to the Pakistan context. And where we can identify quite similar overlapping of crises, including conflict, climate change-induced natural disasters, and now obviously COVID-19. These multiple crises show that we cannot continue as is, and I think we've become more aware throughout this exceptional year that human behavior is increasingly having a negative impact on our planet, and our food systems, interestingly, are part of this problem. And this year's guest essay by several researchers from London's Chatham House Institute takes a closer look at this issue, and in their contribution, they use a One Health approach to analyze how the food we eat is linked not only to our own health, but also to animal and plant and environmental health. And they argue that our food systems are inadequate to end hunger, and on the contrary, they are not resilient to crises, they are unfair, and they even contribute to drivers of hunger. So the way we produce our food, agricultural practices, intensive livestock production contribute to agroecological degradation, destroyed habitats, loss of biodiversity, and climate change, which means they also contribute to the rise of emergent infectious diseases such as COVID-19. In fact, our food systems contribute 1/3 of total net human-caused greenhouse gas emissions and account for 70% of freshwater use. Moreover, agriculture and trade policies are often tilted against low and middle income countries and smallholder farmers, especially. Rural communities, indigenous people, women, other marginalized groups are particularly affected by land grabs for agro-businesses and the overall lack of secure land tenure. Throughout this year, we've also seen the importance of social safety nets in times of crises, but 55% of the world's population is actually not covered by any such programs. So looking at these developments, a huge gap to zero hunger, multiple crises, inadequate food systems, the question then remains, what needs to be done in order to realize the right to food? So let me just end my presentation with a few thoughts from the GHI, from a long list of recommendations you will find in the report. For sure, we know that at the moment, acute interventions are needed, such as the declaration of food and agricultural inputs as essential services, even during lockdowns, ensuring equal access to emergency measures, including medical equipment and vaccines, cash assistance where appropriate. But of course, we also cannot forget the long-term goals, and we must mainly tackle the structural causes of hunger. And this includes social investments to increase resilience to future shocks, such as through building social protection systems. But it also means building fair, healthy, resilient, and environmentally friendly food systems that holistically consider the health of humans, animals, plants, and our shared environment. And the key to make food systems work better for people and planet is to create a healthy and just food environment with fair and adequate income for smallholder farmers, fishers, and producers. And a key component to this is to strengthen local and regional food systems that promote sustainable local agricultural production, value creation, and markets, including supporting smallholder farmers to become more sustainable and resilient and diversified producers, improving their access to agricultural inputs and extension services, and overall creating circular food economies that reduce the loss and waste of nutrients. But this cannot only be on a local and regional level, but also global trade in agricultural products should be fair and climate friendly, which also means including due diligence along the entire value chain. And as the report shows, a One Health approach can help here to create coherence between the multiple sectors that are crucial to achieve these goals. And then on the next slide, you'll also see that these ambitious goals and changes in food system governance will need strong international cooperations. And crises, but also food systems are globalized today, and food system actors operate across borders. So there's ample opportunities coming up to ramp up international cooperation also towards these goals, including the UN Food System Summit in 2021. And I think everyone who's participating today, but also civil society in particular, play a crucial role in these processes, and to ensure that all these policy processes incentivize local and participatory governance, and very importantly, are guided by the human right to adequate food. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing more thoughts during today's discussion on what needs to happen now to deal with the multiple crises, and also to create a just and sustainable food system in order to realize the human right to food. And with this, I'll hand over again to Tausig and everyone else participating today. We'll talk about, and then Aisha and Farhan will also talk a bit more about the political implications or actions needed in Pakistan. So thanks a lot for your attention, and enjoy the upcoming discussion.
Thank you very much, Mariam. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Mariam Weimers. She is the expert global Hunger Index and member WHH Global Policy and Advocacy team. She joined us from Berlin, Germany. Thank you very much for this very detailed and in very simple words. You brought us, you highlighted the important features of the 2020 Global Hunger Index, and very interestingly, I also noted it down, and our viewer right now, Shafatullah, also has this question that what are the reasons that Pakistan came from 37.2 to 24.4? This GHI score has improved, and what are the reasons? And I think Mariam mentioned a couple of them in another way, but I'm actually, Shafatullah, really looking forward to our very competent panel that we have lined up for you in the later part of this, technology meeting. And I think this is going to be an important question to put before our panel, that what are the reasons? We have Chris, we have Dr. Irshad Danish later joining us. So we'll put this question to them. Again, thank you very much, Mariam. And also there's a question that is the recording for this session going to be available later? The answer is yes, absolutely. We are going to share the recording of this session later for all of you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to move to the launch of a strategy for stakeholders engagement for food and nutrition security 2021 to 2025. And for this, we have with us Saliha Pervez, Head of Programs, Cesvi, and she's joining us from Islamabad. Saliha, over to you. All the best.
Thank you so much, Tausig, for the introduction, and welcome to all of our participants as well. Very glad to be here, and thank you, Mariam, for the presentation on Global Hunger Index. I think this is a perfect segue for discussion that we need to have right now about. So we have heard about the problems, the crisis, but what do we do and where do we go from here? Because I think the last slide from Mariam was also very pertinent, that the disasters seem to be collaborating better than we are. So the solution, I suppose, for that is that all of us come together, we collaborate, and then together we can actually mitigate the crises at best. So right now I'm going to present to you, Alliance 2015's take on the crisis and our solution and our the strategy that we've developed for that purpose. So on your screen right now, Okay. So I'll actually quickly walk you through, with the introduction of Alliance 2015 first. Thank you, Tosi, for introducing earlier, in the opening as well, that we are an alliance of European organizations. So overall, globally, Alliance 2015 is an alliance of 8 NGOs, European NGOs, and in Pakistan, there is 5 of them operational at the moment. Acted, Cesvi, Concern Worldwide, HELVETAS, and WHH. So when we speak about Alliance 2015 globally, let me give you just a quick, global overview of the work that we've been doing. Like I mentioned, it is a partnership of 8 European NGOs, and we are present right now in 85 countries and have reached over 50 million people. And just this last year's budget or total programming was more than 640 million euros. So I'm sure this would give you an idea of the extent of the work that is being done right now. But definitely there's need for more, and there's need for more coordination between us as well as the multiple stakeholders. And we'll talk about that in the slides to come. Having talked about Alliance globally, let me give you a brief idea of Alliance 2015 work within Pakistan. So like I said, there's 5 of us organizations that are currently operating, and in the last about 1 decade, we have done completed over 15 humanitarian development resilience related projects jointly, and this is on top of the work that of course we do as individual organizations. And through these projects, we have covered a lot of different sectors. These include water, sanitation, hygiene, shelter, most important and pertinent for today's discussion, food security and livelihood, climate change, education, and several more. So these projects have reached over 5 million beneficiaries so far, and right now we are, this year as well, we are implementing multiple projects in coordination with each other in partnership. For example, as soon as the COVID-19 emergency was declared, our group was perhaps the first, to actually be able to respond together. And right now as well, we work in a consortium and across the country to respond to COVID-19 crisis. So this is just some of the examples of our work together. Having spoken about Alliance in general, let's move to the food nutrition security crisis in Pakistan. We have heard from Miriam about the global hunger or food and nutrition security crisis globally, and then specifically for Pakistan as well. So we would also like to share with you some examples or some specific information about the key indicators which define the crisis at hand. So like you heard earlier as well, Pakistan ranks 88th out of 107 countries in the Global Hunger Index. Not only that, but as per the Global Climate Risk Index, we are actually the 5th most vulnerable country to climate change. And that we have seen in the multitude of disasters that the country has been faced with over the years, and a lot of times multiple disasters at the same time. So the number of hungry people in Pakistan has increased, every year since 2008-9. And then speaking specifically of, the population that is affected, there is at least 34.1% of the population which is affected by extreme or moderate or severe food insecurity. At present, there is 37% of the population which is classified as food insecure, and more than 20% at least is undernourished. And then there are other indicators which could, explain or establish the level of food and nutrition insecurity in the country. For instance, access to safe water is one key indicator, and we can see that 27.2 million Pakistanis do not have access to safe water. Similarly, the country also has one of the highest maternal mortality rates in South Asia. Right now, the rate is 186 per 100,000 live births. So all of these, the different indicators that we talk about, which establish the fact that, we are currently in a food and nutrition security crisis, Unfortunately, we expect that they would only worsen right now, given that this year with the pandemic and then multiple other disasters, these indicators are likely to worsen, and there is therefore an emergency right now for us, all of us, to come together and be able to coordinate and engage for a solution. The other crises, for instance, the pandemic, locust attacks, floods, drought, water scarcity, all of these contribute towards further worsening of the indicators. So keeping in view the background that we have shared with you about the situation within the country, Alliance 2015 basically came together with the idea of finding a solution to actually combat that and to put together our resources, our strengths, and therefore we arrived at the conclusion that for us to be able to combat this problem, we need to coordinate with the key stakeholders for food and nutrition security within Pakistan. And to do so, we developed a strategy, a stakeholder engagement strategy. And we speak more about that, but I'd first like to run you through the process that was followed, because we wanted it to be grounded in facts. We wanted to make sure that we have taken into account all of the policies that currently exist. And then it was a very rigorous process spread for over more than a year, where we consulted with all of the different stakeholders and made sure that this is bringing together the inputs of all of the different individuals and the organizations involved. So just to give you a brief summary, in preparation of this strategy, we had conducted a policy gap analysis at both the federal level. This one was done by Alliance 2015 and SUN CSA. SUN CSA being the Scaling Up Nutrition Civil Society Association. And since after the 18th Amendment, the agriculture and food security sector has become a provincial level responsibility. Therefore, we, on top of the federal level analysis, we had also conducted a provincial analysis. As well as that, we have also conducted workshops for, Alliance 2015 partners, SUN CSA, local implementing partners on the ground to get their inputs and to make sure that the strategy and the strategy outline is inclusive and includes the inputs of and experiences, the lessons learned and best practices from all of the different stakeholders. In addition to the workshops and the policy analysis, we had also conducted an extensive literature review. And on the basis of that, then we developed the SES, or the stakeholder engagement strategies implementation and action plan, because the idea is that sure, we have a strategy, but a standalone strategy itself cannot do much. We have to make sure that it is one actionable, and then we follow through with the goals that we set out. So later on in the presentation, my colleagues will also speak more about what we have done, the efforts we have made in order to make sure that the strategy is actually meeting the targets. And yeah, like I said earlier, that the strategy was finalized after a rigorous process of internal and external consultations. This session today itself is also one of our efforts to bring everyone together on one page and make sure that everyone is heard, everyone's inputs are present, and then moving forward in the years to come as well. This is a 5-year strategy, so every year we have the milestones set for the specific goals that we have as part of the strategy. So I spoke briefly about the process that we followed in developing the strategy, but I would now invite my colleague, Dr. Arjuman Nizami. She's the country director of HELVETAS, who will run us through the exact process that was followed in order to develop the policy and the policy gap analysis process itself. Over to you, Dr. Arjuman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Saniha. So very quickly, policy gap analysis for us was the very first and very important step, because it was very important for us to analyze what already exists on the ground, and this is where we wanted to start. Not just in terms of what exists in the policies, be it national policies or provincial policies, but also the actions emanating from the existing policies and the stakeholders who are responsible as duty bearers to implement those actions. So what we have done is we've taken all possible relevant policies at national level and provincial level. We've really rigorously gone through those, and we've tried to thresh out different comparative advantages within these policies and define some of the entry points where alliance partners can bilaterally, as individual organizations based on their own professional niche and expertise, or Alliance 2015 as a group, can really engage and begin the process through stakeholders' participation. This founded our basis for the strategy that we are currently looking at. Can we go to the next? So yes, so the good news was that we found out that most of the policy documents, they carry basic ingredients addressing malnutrition or nutrition related elements in one way or the other. So of course, this was a great news for us. But of course, we were kind of concerned on very few policies having a direct objective, really stating their direct intervention in terms of addressing nutrition. So the objectives are not very clearly laid out for nutrition, and with this we can understand as long as ingredients were there. One concern about agriculture policies and health-related policies was that, in fact, there were two issues. One, agriculture policies were generally not very well aware of the objective of nutrition mainstreaming, whereas agriculture is, of course, one of the basic, foremost important ingredient of addressing food security and nutrition. And the second one was the lack of connection between health and nutrition. Being exclusively a topic of health and not agriculture, but at the same time, very weak linkages between agriculture and health for addressing nutrition priorities. Next, please. Now, even where nutrition relevant objectives or ingredients existed, the operationalization of those elements was a bit challenged. And some of the reasons which we've listed here is because robust monitoring and evaluation system was not quite visible. And I think this is not just a dilemma that we face in nutrition. We face such dilemmas in most of the policies implementation. So of course, transparency and accountability in terms of implementation was always challenged. The second was the capacities, the question of capacities to implement all those elements. Budget allocations were not always clear. So action plans are usually not very concrete. And if they are, if you don't have budget allocation, that you're actually not talking about really concrete implementation. A very important element was human resources. Where do the human resources come? Because nutrition is, of course, a national issue. So health and education particularly, despite having such a huge human resource at their end, at national level, there is no mention of intersectoral collaboration between the two to address nutrition and malnutrition and food security issues. So all this boils down to our overall objective or foundation for stakeholder engagement strategy. We could go to the next slide, where policy gap analysis basically really founded our main entry point for food and nutrition strategy. The stakeholders from all these key stakeholders could be brought together and really facilitated by Alliance 15 partners and many other like-minded partners to engage in multi-sectoral dialogue. So the ingredients are there. We just have to bring stakeholders and really talk, to achieve common objective so that we have a far better situation in years to come. Thank you so much. And I'd like to hand over to our next presenter. I think Shadab Fariduddin, our resource person, will present our next slides on the ingredients. Please.
Shadab, if you could unmute yourself, Shadab sir. If you could unmute your mic, please. Thank you.
I have. Thank you very much, Tausik, for pointing that out. Thank you very much, Alliance 2015 team, for organizing this launch event, which culminated in a very long struggle for establishing this stakeholder engagement strategy through a very rigorous process. And I must appreciate and bring on record the valuable contribution and feedback provided to me throughout this process. So it has been an excellent journey. So moving straight on to the topic on hand, the basic question was, how do we devise a mechanism around which the strategy could be built? So we first came up with the idea of an engagement model. So Alliance 2015 engagement approach model consists of three main things. In order to influence the stakeholders, it is necessary that evidence-based knowledge is generated. So that is this evidence-based knowledge generation then feeds into knowledge dissemination through various means, such as a seminar like we are conducting today, or media engagement, and key messages are then delivered to the audience according to the specific requirements of audience. So that is the knowledge dissemination. That knowledge dissemination should increase the effectiveness of actions to be taken. That directly relates to one of the questions that Farhan Siddiqui has asked, that what is the benefit of this meeting? So the benefit of this meeting is that when dissemination of knowledge results in facilitation of actions by government, by the private sector, by the media, by the relevant stakeholders, so then the relevant effect, the resources are allocated where they should go and in the right manner. And hence, in a self-feeding process of knowledge generation, knowledge dissemination, and facilitating the action, that was the overall model that we looked into for developing the stakeholder engagement. Next slide, please. Yes. So given this model, we set up our goals and objective. So the first goal is that Alliance 2015 wants to strengthen stakeholders' commitment to addressing the food and nutrition crisis and encourage knowledge sharing. So that is the core of issue that we have identified, and as has been rightly pointed out by Arjuman, that in various policy documents, food and nutrition is mentioned here and there, but in policy document it is well covered. But actually it is the issue of implementation where the policies break down. So that brings us to the second goal and objective, which is develop a spirit of collaboration and partnership to leverage the expertise of different stakeholders for food and nutrition. So as pointed out by Mariam, and again in the opening remarks by Saleha, that this tendency to work in isolation must end, and we must work collaboratively towards this objective. That leads to the third point, which is demonstrate and expressed willingness to undertake multi-stakeholder engagement and dialogue. Again, it feeds into the first objective, first and second objective, that unless everybody is pulling along the same direction and the same goal, the stakeholder engagement will not yield results. Next slide, please. So we identified that there are 7 organizations, international aid agencies, academia, media, private sector, and public community. So they all need to be educated. They all need to have right type of knowledge and right type of information. And then they should be able to take the right steps in the right direction in collaboration with each other. So these are the key stakeholders that we seek to engage with under this strategy. Next slide, please. So this is a further detail of the key stakeholders. What do we mean by federal government, provincial government, district government, academia and research institutions, media? Each of the key stakeholder has been profiled in detail with respect to the type of messages and the information need that needs to be fulfilled with respect to food and nutrition strategy. Next slide, please. Yes, a strategy is as good as the action plan. So this strategy does not remain a strategy. It converts into very meaningful action plan and with milestones. So we have set up a 5-year milestones, and within those 5 years, the first year milestones revolve around these things. First need is to create an stakeholder engagement working group and support teams. So this engagement working group consists of the head of Alliance 2015 members and their partners, because they will be leading the engagement. Once this is created, then there is a task to produce research paper, policy briefs, and case studies on an annual basis. This is the part of the overall engagement model in which the knowledge is basically created first, and then organize one conference on food and nutrition security annually, so that all the knowledge that is created is then disseminated through this conference. Once this is done, then this huge effort requires a lot of resources to be put in. So then coordinate joint resource mobilization. This ties up with the question that Javeria Saeed has raised, that without having strong economic support or funds available, how can we implement sustainable projects in order to help to cope with zero hunger? So Javeria, this is your answer, that the resources are not only generated, but they are directed. So that is the milestone. And finally, engage and provide technical assistance to media on food and nutrition strategy. It is very important that media takes the message forward. So these are the 5 milestones that we have set for the first year under a 5-year implementation plan. Next slide, please. So for the stakeholder engagement strategy, on the top of it, this is a structure that will guide the implementation of the strategy. So FNS stakeholder engagement working group, consisting of all the 5 Alliance 2015 members. Under this, each member, or from within each member, there will be a research support team, a multi-stakeholder research support team that will generate knowledge, media and communication support team that will engage and provide technical assistance to the media, event management support team that will organize events to magnify the messages or to further the engagement process, and then resource mobilization support team that will seek to generate further resources, not only for strategy implementation, but also for the improvement of food and security nutrition in the context of Pakistan. Next, please. So this is the overall framework within which the commitment and professionalism of the Alliance 2015 member is depicted, that there is a strategy, there is a clear action plan, and there are specific targets to be met. So this is an overview of the strategy. If you have any further questions, I would welcome them on the chat box. But from here on, I would hand it over back to Saleha to take it further.
Thank you so much, Shadab Saab. Thank you very much, Dr. Arjuman, for your inputs. Just for everyone's clarity as well. So Shadab Saab was actually leading the process of the policy strategy development with us as our consultant throughout the process. So thank you for your inputs. Now I would actually like to invite Aisha Jamshed once again to take the floor and speak a little more about the ongoing programming of Alliance 2015 in Pakistan. So over to you, Aisha.
Thank you, Salia. I mean, with most strategies, what we've done is, and what we want to share with all the various participants who are here today, that as the Alliance, we are not waiting for things to happen. This, for us, this is already work in progress, and there are lots of things that we are already doing, and we'd like to share some of the initiatives that the Alliance 2015 partners are currently undertaking. Especially when it comes to the alliance, we have all the partners are trying to link relief with rehabilitation and development, and we are all working on the same approach. Resilience is also at the core of all the programming that we are doing in Pakistan. And if I go over briefs of individual organizations or their specific niche and expertise as organizations, I would like to begin with ACTED. ACTED has been working very extensively on off and on farm climate smart actions using technical and vocational training. They have also been working extensively on smart agriculture, climate smart agriculture. Similarly, Cesvi is promoting innovative models in food nutrition and security, and also approaching multi-sectoral nutrition sensitive, including multi-sectoral nutrition sensitive approaches in all its projects. Concern, on the other hand, has been very strongly working on community-based management of acute malnutrition. And they have also been working extensively on resilience, building resilience of the communities in the country as a whole. HELVETAS is a very strong partner for when it comes to advocacy and stakeholder engagement. Advocacy for mainstreaming nutrition in agriculture and value chains has been a core business for them throughout their interventions in Pakistan. Dietary diversification and climate resilient agriculture production is also an area that they work in. When it comes to WHH, we are also very specifically working on linking agriculture, nutrition, and natural resource management. And we are also working with multi-sector programming towards improved nutrition. So these are some of the areas that are already, that is something that the Alliance is already working on, and we would like to expand our database, share our expertise, get to collaborate with organizations who have expertise that we might not be having as an alliance, and make sure that we contribute together to achieve a more nourished society for Pakistan. Thank you so much. I would like to hand over to Tawseek from here for the next session, please.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, Saliha. Thank you, Dr. Arjumul. Thank you, Dr. Shadab, and Aisha yourself. I think it was a long but a very comprehensive presentation, a joint presentation by all four of you. And now the Alliance 2015 itself and the strategy it has developed. And as Aisha mentioned, that this is work in progress. The strategy is also under construction, and as Dr. Shadab said, there's no strategy unless you have an action plan to implement it. So I'm actually really looking forward to it. But for me, the catch, ladies and gentlemen, after this session was what Dr. Shadab Fariduddin very aptly said, and he said, and I quote, "Tendency to work in isolation must end." I think this is, again, something similar that Mariam also reflected upon. And I think when it comes to the strategy itself, as you could see, there were 7 stakeholders, there were 7 key stakeholders that Dr. Shadab mentioned. And if you have a detailed look on it, we had Government of Pakistan, we had the provincial governments, the academia, the media, the corporate sector, and also I should also like to mention a very important stakeholder, and that is the researchers who should be on board. And I'm very happy and pleased to share with you, ladies and gentlemen, that I was going through the comments box and people who are watching us right now. Interestingly, I think everyone on the panel will be happy to hear that almost every part, every segment of the key stakeholders is present right now. They are listening to us, they are engaging, they're asking questions, they are asking hard questions, which is great. And thank you very much for the panel to have answered most of the questions. Mubarak, coming to your question, yes, the presentations will be available later on for you to benefit from. And also we had a comment from China, a PhD scholar is also interested in this kind of conversation, which is really heartening to note. And also, I should also mention that the whole recording of this the whole activity this morning, this afternoon, will be shared with you on YouTube and the Facebook. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let me take this opportunity now to move to the session 2 this afternoon. When I say afternoon, it means Pakistani afternoon, because some of us, like myself, I'm in Manchester, and somebody is in Brussels or in Berlin. So for us, it's the morning here. All right, so friends, ladies and gentlemen, let me now move to our next session, where I would like to invite Antonia Potter-Prentice. And Antonia is the Alliance 2015 Director, and she's going to join us from the hub of 2015, Alliance 2015, which is in Brussels. Welcome, and over to you, Antonia.
Thank you so much, Tausig. What a kind introduction, and it's a real pleasure to be with you all on Zoom. As everybody else has said, I do wish that I could be with you there in Pakistan, sharing tea and having more in-depth conversations about how best we can work together to meet the food and nutrition security challenges in Pakistan. But it's not possible now. I hope in the future. And as a token of my wish to be with you, I have put on a scarf that I was given by a Pakistani friend from Pakistan. So at least I have that with me for our conversation.
You look great.
Thank you very much. I wasn't fishing for compliments, Tausig, but I appreciate them anyway. So I would just like to tell you a little bit more about Alliance 2015 at the global level, and how we connect to the work that has been so well described already by my colleagues in the Alliance in Pakistan. So as Tausig mentioned, I'm the director of the Alliance 2015 in Brussels, and we are these 8 European-based but globally active humanitarian and development organizations. So at the core of our philosophy is this idea of collaboration. You've heard a lot about this today, the value of collaboration and facilitation, but in fact, it's absolutely the beating heart of what we do. Our vision is that by working together with our membership and our stakeholder partners, that we can become more effective change agents in ensuring community resilience in the context where we work. And just to give you an idea of our coverage, we're working together in 94 countries, spending over 1 billion euros a year and reaching over 50 million people. And the way we do that is by combining a very pragmatic set of activities. So first of all, it's about building more substantial, higher quality joint programming in development and in emergency. So thus in the famous nexus, which I know you all will have heard about and have your opinions upon, and then trying to draw strong practical evidence from our experience and that of our partners, so that we can be more authentic and influential interlocutors with decision makers, and access new and increased revenue streams to ensure results on a significant scale. So essentially, you could say we're an SDG, a Sustainable Development Goal delivery collaboration hub. And we're doing our best to bring the realities of humanitarian development challenges to the ear and eye of our colleagues in the EU at Brussels level. I don't need to tell you, working across a range of organization types, I think including the EU and Pakistan, how one can never work hard enough on communications between the different levels. And that's something that we attempt to really facilitate in our practice in Alliance 2015. So we have heard, I think, quite extensively already from Saleha and Shadab about the development of the stakeholder engagement strategy for food and nutrition security in Pakistan. And I just want to explain a little bit more how that connects to what we are doing in Brussels, and how that's meant to add value to the work that you are all doing on the ground. So as you've heard, we've been working together as Alliance in Pakistan for well over a decade, responding to humanitarian crises and working with development partners across a whole range of sectors and SDGs. But for this particular piece of work, what we do as Alliance, we're a little bit like a knowledge network. So to the expertise on the ground in our country teams, we've provided technical support from policy and technical specialists, so people working on nutrition programming, food and nutrition security policy and programming across our organizations to support this collaborative approach, and making sure that the messages that are being delivered to stakeholders and develop with stakeholders in Pakistan are also being transmitted in a useful way in Brussels, where they can feed policy programming and funding decisions. So what does that look like in Brussels? Well, our job really is to try and create a channel from people working with the realities on the ground, so all of you, to our contacts at the EU global level. So we always try to work in partnerships and coalitions. So currently we take a leading role in something called Generation Nutrition, which is an informal coalition of international organizations working towards nutrition goals specifically, but obviously under the rubric of SDG 2. So those include organizations well known to you all, like Action Against Hunger, CARE, Save the Children, World Vision, WaterAid, and global health advocates. And we meet regularly with the nutrition team in the Commission and the geographic teams in the Commission to bring them sometimes evidence and ideas about how programming needs to be adjusted to meet needs in specific countries or regions, and sometimes on policy issues. So for example, trying to influence how nutrition programming is treated and funded in the budget for the new commission, the new instrument called the NDICI, which is obviously much more geographical now than it is thematic. So we've done a lot of work with our nutrition colleagues in the commission to make sure that this as a theme remains prioritized across humanitarian and development programming. And we work towards major events in the global advocacy calendar. So many of you will know there is the World Food Systems Summit now to be held in September next year, and the all-important Nutrition for Growth Summit that was pushed back by 1 year because of our unfortunate encounters with COVID-19, where we have a critical moment to get international donors to pledge high levels of support for the nutrition agenda so that we can meet SDG 2 by 2030 as planned. So we're really creating momentum and dynamism and channeling evidence from what's happening in countries like Pakistan, which have very complex food and nutrition security profiles, which have made progress in the ways that have already been discussed, but have huge challenges ahead of you, which have been already very well laid out by my colleagues, in particular with regards to climate change, COVID-19, and this challenge around the potential decrease in overseas development assistance linked to the massive economic suck that COVID-19 will produce on the budgets of funding nations. So the messages that we share with the Commission are the ones you've heard today around the fact that food and nutrition security is really the essential precondition for any kind of human development. And so we have to make sure that it's built into all types of programming. Also, that transformed agri-food systems are essential preconditions for planetary health and security. We remind them constantly, and of course our friends in the Commission know this, but it's our job to try also to connect with our member states, the European Union member states. So as we have major NGOs working in 7 member states and also in Switzerland, they have important relationships with their donor governments. And that's a very, very important place where we try and create a momentum for them to also work at EU level to make sure that the gap on SDG 2 is closed. I mean, the figure that we reckon that is the funding gap to meet SDG 2 is estimated at about $14 billion annually for OECD donors. But we also need to look at creating conditions where private sector investment can genuinely be connected with the smallholders and producers at the field end of local value chains. We're very aware that governments alone and civil society alone cannot manage this challenge. It truly is a multi-stakeholder approach. And that's why, again, we have to come back to the fact, which sounds like a soft thing, but really is a very meaningful thing that collaboration and facilitation and dialogues between people who have technical knowledge, who have research knowledge, and who are in contact with people on the ground, who know how to scale up programs, who know how to measure results, in particular, who know how to set up systems where you can track and measure how to reach the furthest behind, those most left behind, who are of great interest to all of us. These are all things that are absolutely at the heart of what we do. So I think that what's great from a Brussels perspective is we see a lot of alignment between the high level EU thinking and what you would like to do in Pakistan about building back greener and better, facing the climate challenge, making sure that there are jobs and growth reinforced by human flourishing and good health. But of course, we're right in the thick of the battle here, and we must not step down our efforts. So I hope I've given you just a little bit of a picture of how we connect with our valued colleagues on the ground, and that you can see that while our colleagues there in Pakistan are working with all of you to step up better resourced, context adapted approaches to support Pakistan in meeting the Sustainable Development Goal 2, that we're continuing to work at global level to make sure priorities are maintained in donor policies and programs to support this multi-stakeholder action on this key issue, which underpins human flourishing and development in the most fundamental way. I'm just going to finish again by appreciating this moment to meet you all, really appreciating the incredibly hard work of my Alliance 2015 colleagues on the ground, and expressing my hope to learn more from you during the conversations today. And I shall be perusing the chat with close attention to learn from you what you think we as international civil society partners should be discussing in Brussels about food and nutrition security and SDG 2 in Pakistan. So I will finish it there with a huge thanks to you, and back to you, Tawseek. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antonia. Thank you very much for your input and for your quick overview of the global perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really pleased to share with you that our panel is going to start now, and to preside the panel, we have Excellency Julian Hannes. He's the UN Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator in Pakistan. Excellency, welcome to this session, and we are so very honored and pleased that you could take out time and be part of these two launches. And also part of the panel, ladies and gentlemen, are going to be Bernard Jasper Fraser. He's Head of Mission ECHO Pakistan. Chris Kai, Country Director, UN WFP, World Food Programme. Shahid Fazal is the Nutrition and Food Policy and Strategy Consultant. Dr. Ishad Danish is an advocacy advisor and a nutrition at Nutrition International, Sun CSA. And also Mr. Muhammad Nasser is going to join us on this panel. He's the Chair Sun Business Network. I welcome all of you to the panel. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start the conversation of the panel, let me share with you that Excellency Julian Hannes has 31 years of experience in development cooperation, who's going to preside the panel today. And his experience is majorly into humanitarian assistance and management. He was previously Deputy Humanitarian Coordinator in the Democratic Republic of Congo, before which he served as Head of Office for the Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Nigeria, UNICEF representative in Yemen and Kenya, and as well as humanitarian positions he has held in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Lebanon, and Indonesia. And prior to joining the United Nations, Mr. Hannes has worked in the private sector as well. So now, friends, ladies and gentlemen, now what we are looking ahead in the coming 30 minutes is an interactive discussion with these very well experienced panelists. And the topic of the discussion will be making food systems better and strengthening international cooperation towards FNS for all. And just to bring everyone on board, because this session has been there for the last more than 1 hour. For those of you who have joined a bit later, let me share with you that we started off with the two very interesting detailed presentations. First one was by Miriam Weimers She's the expert of Global Hunger Index and member WHH Global Policy and Advocacy team. And she launched and gave an overview of the Global Hunger Index. And interestingly, something very important that came up was the progress that Pakistan as a country has made from 37.2 to 24.4. And for the panel, this is also a point that we could discuss what have been the reasons for this improvement, and how can we have this strategy in place to make this improvement even faster, which was obviously the focal point when we talked about the Alliance 2015 strategy, and that was Saleha and Arjuman and Shadab and Aisha. So these are the areas that we have been discussing so far. I wanted to give this overview, especially for Julian Hannes, that he's recently joined us. So welcome everyone. And I would like to start the conversation from Dr. Irshad. Dr. Irshad Danish, maybe you could tell us and elaborate a bit on the current laws, regulations, and policies affecting production and supply of sufficient and sustainable food and nutrition for the people of Pakistan. And also, do you see any opportunities for improvement there? Dr. Danish, please.
Thank you very much, Tawseek and Alliance 2015 for inviting me to share civil society perspective. There are many policies, strategies, and laws related to food production, supply, and consumption. We shall discuss only few due to time constraints, and I would like to share that we are compiling all these laws, and these laws and policy documents will be archived and will be available next month, and everyone can access to all these laws. Let's start with the National Food Security Policy, which was launched by Ministry of National Food Security and Research in 2018, and same documents are being developed by provincial government, and they are at different stages. National Food Security Policy aims to achieve its objective through mitigation of poverty, promotion of sustainable food production system by achieving an average growth rate by 4% per annum, and making agriculture more productive, profitable, climate resilient, and competitive. Many of us believe that Pakistan is a food surplus country, but situation of food security has been stagnant in Pakistan due to multiple reasons. Yeah, and if we truly want to implement a national food security policy, we must focus on helping farmers by taking some practical steps, such as the fertilizer and seed costs are gone up in the recent past. Investing on agriculture research and capacity building of farmers at grassroots level is also important, and provision of high quality climate resilient seeds, improving land and water resource management, and uh, reducing food losses and wastage is also important. And another thing I would like to highlight is exploitation by third party. We need to work on that, and we should be providing easy access to local and international markets, so that farmers could uh, uh, sell their products. The second important document is Pakistan Multi-Sectoral Nutrition Strategy, which was launched in 2018, and provincial multi-sectoral strategies were also launched between 2012 to 2014. Uh, these strategies are actually, these strategies describes key action roles of different sectors like agriculture, education, wash, and social protection, health, etc. And also describe the role of different stakeholders like government, civil society, donors, UN academia, and research community. Uh, the major challenge for implementation of this strategy is that although we have been working on development of action plan, but so far we don't have casted action plan. So if we don't have a casted action plan, we cannot implement any strategy. And similarly, resources are not prioritized, and even leveraging with existing resources is not worked out yet. And third is food regulation, food laws at provincial level. Currently, laws are available in all provinces and being implemented through food authorities, and even at national level, a law is being mainly they deal with the production and marketing of foods. And we noticed that major foods companies are progressively complying with the food laws, and they have built capacity of their staff, but at small outlets and vendors, they need to be educated more, and they should be capacitated on food standards. Another challenge is anomalies in laws. Like we have different standards at national level, but at provincial level we have different standards. So the issue is being discussed at the level of Council of Common Interest, and maybe Dr. Nasir will speak more on this later. And just summarizing, I know time is limited. There are other laws like breastfeeding laws which never been implemented so far due to multiple reasons. We have Pakistan Dietary Guideline for Better Nutrition, which is being translated and need to be disseminated widely for awareness raising as well as.
Dr. Danish, thank you so much for your input. I apologize for cutting you there, but we are extremely behind time, and I have 4 or 5 other panelists to speak. And I think there will be some questions because people from academia, from provincial governments, the federal government, people from media are watching us. So this is going to be on Facebook. I will request all the panelists to please keep a track of this session. And if there's a question pertinent, particularly towards you, please feel free to answer that in the comments section. Dr. Danish, thank you very much. Well, I would now like to move to Excellency Julian Hannes, a UN resident and humanitarian coordinator in Pakistan. Excellency, you are presiding the panel. I should be giving you the floor right in the end to give your concluding remarks, but I've heard from my operations team that you have another commitment as well, and you will not be here with us for a very long time. So I would like to give you the opportunity to quickly share your views on today's topic, and also maybe advise how can the government of Pakistan benefit from the opportunities that the United Nations has for this country. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Tawfiq. Thank you very much. Well, firstly, thank you very much for inviting myself and for inviting other colleagues from the UN. Not used to being addressed as Excellency, so probably Julian's will get me more comfortable. But lovely to be here. Look, I think the thing I would say on this subject of food security and nutrition is that it is principally, it's not a technical nutrition problem or even an agricultural problem per se. It's more to do about the structure of the economy and the differentials, power differentials in certain elements of certain locations within certain parts of Pakistan, and the agricultural economy that goes with that. And I'll give you 2 examples of that. The areas where we see the greatest malnutrition, which places I've visited in the last couple of weeks, several times, are places like rural Southeast Sindh. And in Baluchistan, it's the provinces of Nazirabad and Jafrabad. And these are not, and these are, when you go there, it's shocking because they're so green and fertile. You're talking about the highest malnutrition and the areas of food security. They're not deserts and sort of, it's not the sort of the deserts of Tapaka or the deserts of the bordering areas of Baluchistan with Afghanistan. These are areas where there's trees and greenery and the wheat and the rice and the cotton goes on for miles. And yet these are precisely the areas where these challenges exist. So that suggests to me that this isn't an issue of not being able to grow enough. It's rather how does society share the results of its production? So it's a discussion about the economy. It's a discussion. It's a discussion about social justice, which is obviously a very difficult one. I think the other element is that generally these areas are ones where there tends to be a monoculture. It's areas where generally we see one crop which dominates the local economy. And there aren't many economic alternatives for people. It's not like it's not like you have if you're living in a small village in Nazirabad or Jafrabad, it's not like you can go work in a factory as an economic alternative. It's not like you can go work elsewhere. You have very little choice but to engage in the economy that is put in front of you. So from that, I think my suggestions to this group would be that we need to be looking at discussions with society leaders, with government, about how can we contribute to building a fairer society in these areas, and how can we, and on the agricultural side, on economic policy, how can we diversify these economies to offer greater alternatives? What elements of post-harvest can be introduced into these? How can we introduce different technologies that would allow a diversified economy for the inhabitants of these regions? And that requires a grouping and a discussion. And I think one of the further challenges that face us is there are several forums for the coordination of these discussions within Pakistan, but not really one where we all sit together, particularly with civil society, with the NGOs, where we can work together on these areas. And I think that's an area of development for the future. So some thoughts from my side. Thank you, Tawfiq.
Thank you very much, Julian. Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see that we are a lot behind time, and I would suggest the following, and I would suggest that since we still have 4 panelists to talk about, so I will not feed you with questions. Maybe I can give the floor to each one of you for a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes, because a lot has been discussed so far with 2 long, very comprehensive presentations and 3 inputs. I would say I give you the floor, and in whatever perspective you want to give your input, guide us, be a contributor to this very, very important session. Please take the floor, give your input, and I will encourage, like Irfan and Saad and Abdul Rahman, or you're asking questions, I will encourage all the viewers right now to please keep asking questions in the comments box, and our panelists will be really happy to answer back later on. So I would like to go in this particular order. First Bernard, then Chris, then Shahid, and then Nasser Saab. So Bernard Kasper Fajer, he's head of mission ECHO Pakistan, and obviously he brings a very pertinent donor perspective to the whole conversation. And there was a question regarding that as well. So Bernard, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tawfiq. It's, I think, first of all, thank you so much for organizing this. I think what is very much needed, that there is a clear message about hunger, about nutrition, that we know what we're talking about, because sometimes it can be a little bit that we are as nutritionists of those kind of experts, sometimes they have mixed messages, and you have about SAM and MAM and different way of measuring. I would say one thing is a consistent message, and about hunger in Pakistan, these things that should not happen. I think that this is very much clear, and I think it should be consistently communicated that what is the situation in the same way and what could we do about it. Yes, two things. I was thinking I can say a lot, but two things I was kind of enthusiastic about the last 3.5 years when I traveled around. One area where we have many problems in nutrition and food security is in Sindh, for example, in Tapaka Tar Desert. I was quite encouraged when I went to the research station in Umerkot. I went there to see, and I saw wonderful technologies, new varieties. Even you can grow fruit trees on salt water. It's really wonderful. It's a variety of all sorts of things what can grow even in very dry areas. But when you actually go out and you go and ask farmers, do you know that it exists? And often they say they never heard about it. Or secondly, they cannot grow it because there is something with land ownership or whatever, or they cannot afford it. That's also an issue. Or there is something like, yeah, they have no idea how to process it, how to go on it. So the extension part is very much missing. Just a practical recommendation. Secondly, what I saw in the field of nutrition, it was the ready-to-use therapeutic feeding. I'm not a nutritionist, but there is this substance what you use in nutrition centers to feed to malnourished children. I was very shocked, basically, to learn that this kind of substance is imported in Pakistan. I would say that this is very much possible to grow. You need peanuts and chickpeas, and you need skimmed milk and some other things, which I would expect it was available in Pakistan. So when we did some research on it, we found out it is very well possible. It's just that we all need to work together with the people in research, with the private sector. And then there is the big issue of you need good quality, for example, skimmed milk, which is very hard to get in Pakistan because the skimmed milk was even imported from Europe, and then you have import duties, all sorts of things. So if you take all this together, you have wonderful opportunities, I think, to improve on the livelihood of farmers in the first place, and then contribute to the economy. Just a few practical examples, and maybe with the partners present here, we can work on it in the future. I leave it there because I saw a comment in the question and answer. What use it is to have this kind of discussions. It will not change anything. Just two very practical examples where I think there is a lot of potential in it. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bernard. I think both examples were very organic, to the point, and I'm happy that you shared those. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to request Chris Kai, he's Country Director of the United Nations World Food Programme in Pakistan. Chris, you've been with us in this session for quite some time. You have heard and listened to a lot of colleagues, your friends and experts. What are a couple of points that you would like to bring to the conversation? Chris?
Firstly, thanks very much for inviting me. This has been a great learning opportunity for me. I've been in country since the beginning of March. I've been locked away in my apartment. Haven't really had much of a chance to really get around and get out and see things and to learn and understand the realities in Pakistan. Maybe a little bit, but not as much as I would have liked. So thanks for that. I think a few quick comments. Firstly, the initiative, I think, of the GHI, fantastic. I wasn't aware of it before, but I do think that the additional index that you're bringing and what it represents is an excellent addition, I think, to the kind of multitude of other elements out there, which gives us an indication of really where the food security situation lies globally. So thank you for that. Secondly, with regard to the strategy, again, marvelous. I know Julian's still listening. Very, very committed to the whole concept of more effective, more collaborative coordination Rest assured, WFP as a global player in the food security and nutrition space, 100% keen to ensure that we play our role in supporting the work of this alliance, as well as all the other players. So having a strategy which gives some game plan as to how that can be laid out, extremely helpful. Thank you. Third thing, just want to come back to what Dr. Danish had mentioned. And I attended the National Nutrition Coordination Committee meeting that was chaired by the Prime Minister not so long ago. One of the comments that was made was that we are drowning in strategies. Now, and what I think we know is that we're very good at thinking and planning and doing the academic intellectualizing around how things should be, but we don't seem to be very good at implementing. You know, frightening to hear that, as Dr. Danish indicated, that one of the major problems we have is the prioritization of resources, of the development of costed action plans. We've got to get better at that. Fourth thing is, again, just echoing a little bit of what Antonio mentioned as well, Julian, the issue of a rights-based approach. Many of the problems, as I just want to reinforce, I think that there are real critical social inequity issues, gender perhaps being the most obvious in this country, which need attention if we're really going to make an impact in terms of food security. Final thing, very excited by the attention that this forum, at least in principle, we haven't spoken about it that much, but it's giving to the food systems agenda for next year. We've got to collectively get around this to support the government in its role in developing an action plan, its action plan for a country level food systems dialogue and approach. Going into the summit in September. And with that, I'll stop. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chris. Again, I would like to encourage our viewers to post questions, your inputs, so that this session, which is going to end in a little while now today, is there. It's, you know, your comments are coming in and panelists are answering. So this is this on Facebook and on YouTube is going to work as a good platform for all of us to contribute and keep the conversation going on. Now I would like to invite Shahid Fazal. He's a nutrition and food policy and strategy consultant. Shahid, over to you. I don't have a particular question for you since I'm giving opportunity everyone to give your inputs. But if you remember, there was a question a little while ago regarding what have been the reasons you guys think, consultants and experts like yourself, for Pakistan to give improvement from 37.2 to 24.4 in Global Hunger Index? How has this improvement come along? If you could share your views on that as well, Shahid.
Yes, thank you, Tawseek, and thank you for everyone. The stage has already been set and there is already a piece of the discussion coming up. One of my view, according to the improvement in the food and nutrition security conditions of Pakistan, were the hidden opportunities in the humanitarian actions after the 2005 earthquake. So all of the 2005 earthquake and then the IDP crisis and all of that, these have surfaced the conditions of nutrition and food security in Pakistan, which gave us experimental grounds and ways of improvement and enhancement of knowledge around the subject of food and nutrition security. So over the course of the previous 2 decades, there are lots of investments in the treatment part of malnutrition, in the food security, in agriculture investments and all, which are some of the contributors that has gave the pace towards an improvement of the overall health and nutrition condition and food and nutrition condition in the country. So having said that, we can we have to put some light on the some of the challenges that our producers and consumers are facing, which are the determinants of food and nutrition insecurity in Pakistan. I would say initially the conventional agricultural practices and the mishandling of production the post-harvest losses. Lots of these are the contributing factors of malnutrition and food and nutrition security. We also see that the food demand is driven by food choices. That is a very strong correlation in Pakistan. And the demand is not driven by an ideal food basket or a diversified food basket. The COVID-19, above all, has exposed the fragility of our food systems, and it has also exposed the underinvestment of the local farmers there. So maybe I can also suggest a few answers to these questions, like maybe if we incorporate value chain development approaches through systems thinking, and we invest into developing proper value chains where we can prevent food losses, and we address all of the issues from the producers to the consumers, and taking stake of all of the stakeholders that are to improve the overall chain performance. We also have to have a market-based approach where the market should be adaptive to address the issues of food and nutrition security. It can also be a platform to bring linkages between the small and large markets, between the producers and the consumers. And it can also bring a link between the extension services of the government, like the financial services towards the farmer, which can make them more resilient in these type of crises, particularly which we saw in the COVID-19 scenario. So in terms of governance also, there can be some inputs from where the rules and the regulations of the government, it can support or promote the food systems and to make them more shock resilient. And it is then the responsibility of the government to guarantee a sustained food chain in these type of crisis for all of us. And it should be termed as an essential service. The food production and the availability of food at all times to the common public should be termed as an essential service. Last but not the least, there are lots of gaps in the capacities of the smallholder farmers, which also has to be addressed, and the access of information, improved technologies, social insurance, maybe investments, public-private investments. These are also some opportunities which can boost the morale, and also it can boost the production of the smallholder farmers, who are basically the backbones of our rural community and a major contributor towards the production in the rural community. So these were some of my comments which I could give to the forum on the subject. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being part of this discussion. And to end this panel, I would like now in the end to request Mr. Muhammad Nasir, who is the chair of Sun Business Network. Nasir Saab, thank you for being part of this conversation and this discussion. How do you think are the challenges facing the producers and consumers, which contributes to food and nutrition insecurity in Pakistan, and how can the private sector be of any help in that? Nasir Saab, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Tausik, and thank you, the Alliance, for inviting me in this forum. Yes, you rightly mentioned, until unless we have farmer-focused or farmer-inclusive private sector-led strategies or implementation plan, we will be having many strategies, but somehow if those are not implementable, because why there is implementation issue? Because many of those strategies are not implementable. So the ground realities has to be taken into account. Dr. Abe Suleri is here. He is expert on food security. He will be talking about the food security. But somehow, if we look at the food security dimensions, economic accessibility is an issue. Sustainability throughout the year an issue. When there is a produce, there is no demand, and we don't have the mechanism or the supply chains capable enough to store or preserve those products for the time when we don't have those supplies, and the price goes much beyond the purchase part. But at the same time, farmers don't get anything out of it. And then there is issue on consumer side, consumption side as well, because you have to create a demand for nutritious foods. and your policy and strategies has to be focusing and creating demand for the nutritious food. So the private sector and the producer respond to it. Other thing, we engage too much into spot pricing, but somehow we do not have the inclusive policies which actually prioritize the demand for various foods, or considering the food basket rather than it is focused on one or two crops. And I hope Dr. Abid Suleri will be talking about it. But somehow, whatever we produce, we waste a lot of it. The food wastage as well as the food loss is huge in Pakistan, and sometimes it goes up to 40–50%. If we take the example of milk, we produce on cards 60 billion liters of milk a year, and 15% of this is either lost or wasted. So if you take it into economic terms, it becomes almost 450 billion rupees of milk is wasted in Pakistan on an annual basis. So this is we produce and then we cannot save, or we cannot take that to the consumer. Another core issue in Pakistan is our food production system as well as the supply chain systems. Those are very primitive, and that cannot deliver those nutrients to the end consumers, rather than the supplies are so unregulated, and so that there is a lot of contamination and adulteration. So we produce, but at the same time we don't have access to safe food. Yeah. If you ask me, what is the way forward? In resilient food systems, based on the resilient supply chain, but also the consumer demand, and making policies around the the economic accessibility, so that we have affordable nutrition as well as the for sustainability throughout the year. And then we need to adopt market system approach. So the markets are well and functioning, and then the farmer is not being exploited, and then improving laws and regulations so that the bad cop, the bad boy is being punished, and the good boy is being motivated to are being made passionate to do more. And the last but not the least, integrated nutrition sensitive programming, that is the need of the day, because at the end of the day it has to be a food basket which is nutritious, but it is also affordable, and it is also within the economic reach of the country. And one last point about the current scenario, we have 2% in middle upper class, middle class, 80% in low income class, and around 18% in poor class. But there is a 31% floating class, which is on $1.9 to $3 a day, and that class somehow in pandemics like these is very much vulnerable to drift down to a poor class. So it is very important while we make any programs or policies, we also keep an eye on this floating class. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nasser. Thank you very much, panel. As you can see, we are a lot behind time, but I would like to ask any one of you if you have one short little concluding remark, not more than about 30–40 seconds. So the floor is open for all the panelists. If you want to say something, just an afterthought that you want to contribute to the concluding remarks of this panel, Julian, yourself, Bernard, Chris, Shahid, Dr. Danish, Nasser just spoke. So any one of you who would like to say a concluding 30–40 seconds thing. Julian, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I would. Look, I think, the technical improvements of agriculture, extension, improved nutrition, it's programs, better supply chains, they're all great, but they're not going to deal with the fundamental problem. Mm-hmm. When you go to Mir Pukas and to Umarkot, the people who are malnourished and who don't have access to food are not farmers. They are daily wage laborers. I mean, you might call them farmers, but they are women who when the cotton crop is prepared, are paid for their day's work to go out and to work on the cotton crop or the wheat crop. And the men are working in Karachi on building sites. And it's a similar social structure in Nazirabad and Jafrabad in Baluchistan. So you have a societal construct where those people are never going to plant a tree or improve their agricultural production because they don't own land. And in fact, it's very difficult for them to own land. They are daily wage laborers and they're pretty much locked into that status. And so our improvements in agricultural supply chain isn't going to get them out of that status. And nutrition programs will cure their children who've fallen into malnutrition, but it's not going to stop the next child getting into malnutrition again in 6 months' time, or even the child who was sick, who's been cured of malnutrition. It's not going to deal with that. So I think it's that sort of societal understanding of who is becoming malnourished, who is falling into security, and break down the societal blocks and better understand that and engage with society to change that. That's what will deal with the underlying root causes of this issue, as well as all these very valuable technical programs which Natali justified. Thank you.
If I may also share one important observation, referring to Chris, who I think mentioned we are drawn in strategies. I think this is something very particular for the Pakistan context. What I think is very much important to have a clear, consistent strategy and keep on continuing working through that based on sound data, good information. I think the National Nutrition Survey was a very good example, and we should have more of these kind of data and consistently work on something. I know the context is not always helpful in the sense of a lot of changes, government staff have high turnover, many departments, institutions, they come and go on a local level, but it is very important that there is some kind of consistency and that we all work together in an integrated approach and that we know where we are going. This is just a small afterthought, but I think very important. Thank you.
Tawfiq, if you allow, I would like to speak. As I mentioned, we have a lot of policies and laws, but this is time for implementation and time for action. So government has allocated 350 billion rupees and just recently they announced, but we need to help government of Pakistan how they can effectively implement, design and implement those programs. And second is food system dialogues will start in this month, hopefully. That will be led by government of Pakistan or any national convener. So you are encouraged to participate in national dialogues and provide your opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Danish. I'm sorry. Yes, Tawfiq right now is having some connectivity issues, so let me take over for now. Thank you so much, Dr. Danish, for giving us your valuable comments. But I'll keep the floor open for the panelists. I think I heard from you, Bernard. Would you like to add something here?
No. I think I gave already my input. I don't know if there's any of the other panelists.
Sure. And Nasir Saab, did I see a hand raised? Please feel free to add. Nasir, I think you're mute right now, so you'd have
sorry.
to unmute.
Sorry. If you look at the landscape of farming families in Pakistan, the majority of the families are either 1 to 10 hectares, the vast majority, and then even the livestock farmers, the main farmers are smallholders. The majority of the milk is coming from them. But the issue is those farmers who are smallholders cannot consume. If you look at their food basket, that is also deficient of nutrients. So the producers are not getting enough of nutrients. So if you evaluate the malnutrition status, or if you evaluate the National Nutrition Survey 2018, it becomes very clear that the people living in villages are much more malnourished than the people in urban areas right now. So it is important that if you have to pay the school fee and the other expenses, then those farmers are compelled to sell their products, and then even the milk producers don't have access to milk if the egg producer don't have to access to their eggs. So it is and then Julian rightly mentioned, it is about economy. So how we structure it, it is important, and also if we make policies which are farmer centric, farmer inclusive, so that those are going to work specifically in rural areas. Thank you.
Yes. Great. Thank you so much. With that, we would like to conclude the panel discussion, and thank you very much once again to all the panelists and the participants so far. We have had a very good attendance and a very interactive session with a lot of questions coming in, and we very much welcome, the conversation that we have started from here, and we look forward to continuing it with all of the panelists that were present, as well as the larger community that has contributed today. So once again, very, very warm thank you to all of you for taking out the time to be here with us. And we're very happy to have had the representation from really, I think, all of the stakeholders that we have identified in the strategy. So it has been a pleasure hearing from all of you. So thank you once again. And now I would like to invite Dr. Abid Sudehri for the keynote speech. Dr. Abid Sudehri is the Executive Director of Sustainable Development Policy Institute, STPI, as well as a holder of key positions in advisory forums and policy-making forums with the government, including ones on climate change, on food security. So we're very happy to have him on board and to have his perspective and experience, both as from the research and the think tank experience, as well as policy making and advisory role that he currently has. So thank you very much, Dr. Abid, for joining us, and I leave the floor open to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sadia, and first of all, let me thank all the panelists for enlightening and for their very enlightening remarks and for educating me. What I have done, I had some points jotted down that I wanted to discuss, but in the interest of time, I won't go through them. Let me try to respond to some of the issues which are raised here. And those may be just random pieces of jigsaw puzzle, and then perhaps we will try that how those pieces can be linked together to see and to have a look at this picture of food security, of food systems, nourishment security in Pakistan. The first thing first, and that if I go back to the food security analysis report that STPI, the organization that I represent, and World Food Program we produced back in 2003. At that time, it indicated the geographical disparity when it comes to food insecurity. So according to our 2003 report, most of the districts in Balochistan, parts of the districts in what used to be FATA at that time, and interior Sindh, those were the most food insecure district, and Parker, followed by Dera Bukti, Parker in Sindh and Dera Bukti in Balochistan were the worst two food insecure district. We again compiled a report back in 2009, and according to that report, there was certain improvement in at that time FATA because of perhaps donor interventions after war and terrorism, but Balochistan and interior Sindh that remained the most food insecure district. We compiled yet another report back in 2013, which was not released by the then government. But one of the things which were reflected in that report was the worsening situation of food insecurity in Sindh, but also in Punjab, which used to be the breadbasket. There at one side. On the other side, if I look at the poverty trends and the poverty numbers and the data of the Benazir Income Support Program, we see that perhaps the incident for headcount poverty that is decreasing, but the inequality is on the rise. So the first point that I wanted to leave here, that the current food systems, and maybe for I know that most of the attendees here, they would be familiar with food system, but just to refresh, food system is something, the whole ecosystem of food production supply, right from the sowing till it's on the consumer's table or consumer's plate. So all of these things, they're part of food system. And I think we need to understand the power dynamics within food system. If this inequality continues to grow as it is, then perhaps our traditional and conventional strategies to ensure food security, either through added production or through improved access, that would keep on getting compromised. The second point that I wanted to make here is 2020. We knew that this health pandemic that would be accompanied by a financial constraint crunch, and it would also be accompanied by some sort of food supply disruptions. Fortunately, in case of Pakistan, the food supply chains, they don't get disrupted. Again, fortunately, the wheat, which is our major staple crop, there was a shortage of wheat crop, but only 10 to 12%. But then once that the prices of wheat, while there was a shortage of around 10%, the prices of that commodity, those increased by more than 80 to 90%, depending on which part of Pakistan you are procuring it. And that leads me to this again, questioning about not only the food system, but also trying to see that how can we improve the bargaining power of our farmers. I'm not a very staunch supporter of wheat support price system. I think perhaps we need to think of some innovative way of providing subsidy to the farmers, because when I look at the distribution of this support system, it goes to the large farmers, the 40% of large farmers who owns 80% of cultivable land of this country. So they are the major beneficiary of wheat support system. The 80% of farmers who only own maybe less than 12% of small farms, they can never grow that much so that they can sell it to the government. And the intermediary farmers, they don't have enough surplus to sell it to the food department. It's a third party, the middleman, the vendor who will come buy from them and will sell it to the food department on profit. Now, if we have to give this wheat support price, I would be happy to support it if it helps in reduction of rural poverty. But if the rural poverty stays there, and if the urban consumers, they have to pay more, because whenever there is an increase in price of wheat or wheat flour, it's a trigger for inflation for all other commodities. Then I have to question on this phenomena. So the second point that I wanted to leave here is about the targeted subsidies. We need to think of some innovative ways of targeted subsidies. This wheat support price system, I know politically it would be extremely disastrous for any government to roll it off, because many interest groups, they would come, and we are already watching it happening in India, where Indian government, the central government, when they tried to reduce this wheat support price system, we can see that there is an unrest in Punjab and Haryana, and that can be the fate in Pakistan too. But we have to think of some alternative for wheat support system. Next year, I can again see some sort of problem with the wheat. Federal government has announced a wheat support price of rupees 1650 per 40 kg. Sindh government has announced a price of rupees 2000 per 40 kg. Supreme Court has already banned any curtailment of inter-provincial wheat movement. Now, if I'm a seller, or if I'm a agent, a dealer, I'll be more than happy to buy wheat from the farmers in Punjab and sell it in Sindh, where I can instantly, the moment I cross Rahim Yar Khan, I can get 350 rupees profit per 40 kg. And that would create an anomaly on wheat floor price. So that is something that we need to think about. The third thing that I wanted to leave with you, we need to, without politicizing it, make an objective assessment of 18th Amendment. I know it is 18th Amendment of the Constitution. It is an irreversible thing. Parliament had approved it, so there would be no looking back. But we need to make an objective assessment that during last 10 years, which departments and ministries they could function better after devolution of powers and providing them more funds, and which departments and ministries are still struggling with it, and trying to find the bottleneck. We have to build their capacity. When we are talking of food security, we are the federal government can only give you a food security policy framework, but then the buck stops at provincial government, the buck stops at local governments, and that's where we need to see that if 18th Amendment is a problem, how can we somehow crease it out, build the capacity at local level, build the capacity at provincial level, where the decisions about food security has to be taken. My fourth and second last point, that is about the water and sanitation. Amidst COVID-19, we have been talking of wash your hand after every half an hour if you want to remain safe. But then the National Nutrition Survey, that tells us that around 40% of population that is deprived of clean water. I'm not talking of clean drinking water. I'm just talking of clean water. So if that segment of society, almost half of our society is deprived of water and sanitation facility, it's not only having an adverse effect on food insecurity, where it is affecting the food utilization and food assimilation, it is also having an adverse effect on spread of this pandemic. So both for two reasons, both to control this the rising cases of COVID, as well as to ensure food security, we also have to focus on provision of water and sanitation facilities, besides focusing on availability and besides focusing on the controlling prices. Now, with this, I can see there is a silver lining and some ray of hope amidst this COVID. I won't go in detail how COVID is adversely affecting food insecurity. My silver linings, they are dependent on the fact that COVID-19 has compelled the governments, not only government of Pakistan, but all the governments to again bring social sector development agenda back on radar. If we have to remain a safe society free of pandemic, we have to invest in our public health infrastructure. We have to invest in social protection. We have to invest in water. We have to invest in sanitation. We have to invest in nutritious food. And not only this, that the government, they have to invest the funding which is coming to the countries like Pakistan. It is now conditional funding. For example, the $1.4 billion that we received from IMF back in March 2020 under Rapid Finance Instrument, those were conditional only for coping mechanisms against COVID-19. So the government could never increase pays and pension of civil servants out of that amount. They could never retire debt surplus, energy surplus debt out of it, or to pay the losses to the steel mill. It had to be spent on health. It had to be spent on social protection and on COVID. And that to me is a silver lining. And I can see that for the next 2 years, governments, including government of Pakistan, would have to borrow a lot to cope with the second phase of COVID-19 and to strengthen the social protection measures, social safety nets, and to strengthen public health infrastructure, and to strengthen food security. And the good thing is, whatever the government would be borrowing, that had to be spent on these particular things. And the members of this Alliance 2015, I think through you, we also have to make sure that whatever assistance is coming, besides those loans, if any bilateral assistance is coming for COVID-19 and for social development sector or for food security, that gets spent there. Finally, federal government is quite mindful of the whole situation, and I can tell you, I'm a preview of the fact because not only as a member of Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, but also an advisory group at Prime Minister's Office, which is taking food security as a non-traditional security threat. Prime Minister would be very soon launching a food security dashboard. There is a realization that most of our discussion on food security, on availability, on consumption, on prices, that is based on guesstimates, and unless and until we have evidences and unless and until we have research-based numbers, taking these evidence-based decision or well-informed decision would be extremely difficult. So what we have done, and when I say we, STPI on a pro bono basis, we have developed a food security dashboard. That dashboard would provide a real-time picture at NCOC, at the federal government, where the districts of Pakistan, those would have red, yellow, or green color on the basis of stocks of any commodity. So for example, if in that interactive dashboard, if you click on wheat or wheat flour, that would tell you which districts have surplus wheat for 2 weeks or for 3 weeks stock vis-a-vis the consumption. It would tell you the trends of price variation over last 2 weeks or last 1 month, whatever the algo we will program there. Initially, that dashboard would be taking care of wheat flour, wheat, and sugar, but we are planning to expand it. PM office is putting its full pressure to the provinces so that districts, they can start collecting the data on a daily basis. And the plan is that once that dashboard is launched, it would be handed over to Ministry of Food Security and Research. PMO office and our advisory group will keep on hand-holding, and then eventually we'll give it to the provinces, whereby provinces, they can start documenting the data. I know that initially there would be chances that many of the districts or many of the provinces, perhaps the data fed by them would not be perfect, but it is just like documenting your economy. Once they will start putting numbers in, even if those are some made up numbers, a month down the road or 2 months down the road, those numbers would become their baseline. And then it would become extremely difficult for a deputy commissioner or for a province who had reported 2 months ago that wheat flour is being sold in his district or in her district at X rupees per kg, and he or she had abundant stock of wheat, and 1 month down the road, if there is any sudden crisis in his or her district, which we cannot trace on the map, that if stock was taken from district A to district B, so we will be able to not only find out the hoarding, but we will also be able to fix responsibilities. So as I said, that for government, food security is not only about hunger and about poverty. Federal government is taking food insecurity in its larger and broader context, and larger and broader context is that it is a and for keeping the society intact, for peace and justice in society, and making sure that the geographical disparities in food insecurity, they don't erode our federation and the solidarity of federation. Government is taking it serious. I'm extremely thankful for providing this opportunity, and I'll definitely link up this group, Alliance 2015, with the advisory group to the concerned circles, where we can not only showcase the excellent work that you are planning to do through the stakeholder strategy that you are trying to undertake, but also to advise us and give us some practicable, doable things to do. For a think tank, the difficult thing is often considered to be access to the right corners and right circles. At STPI, we have abundance of that access. Now, what I'm feeling, where I feel myself sometime challenged, is the right type of policies and right type of recommendations that are pragmatic and that are doable by a government, that are not wish list. If I can get them implemented at the highest forum and at highest level, I need to be pragmatic and I need to forward those doable, practicable things that government should do. And I bank upon you, this alliance, that your excellent work can actually get transformed into policies and practice. Thank you very much.
Dr. Suleri, thank you very much for very comprehensively first laying out all of the key challenges that we face within the sector, and also for linking them with a larger problem. Very often we tend to restrict ourselves to just food security and nutrition, but you are very right in linking it to let's say health and water, sanitation, etc. And also I think one of the key takeaways is the silver lining that you also mentioned in the face of the pandemic, where definitely it is a challenge of unprecedented levels for the entire world, not just Pakistan. But having said that, it is also an opportunity for us to come together and focus on all of the key sectors, including food security, which would then bring about a long-term and sustainable change. We are very thrilled to hear about the food security dashboard. I think it's a very exciting idea and definitely much needed and very helpful for all of us. I'm sure I speak on behalf of not just Alliance 2015 here, but as well as all of the stakeholders present here as well, that we would definitely benefit from whatever data that would be available through this platform and the dashboard. And this is definitely a much needed and the right step forward. So thank you for that, and we would definitely be taking you up on that offer as well of collaborating further on both research and with the right platform, on the right platform as well, whether it is the NCOC and the advisory councils, where our lessons learned, our experience from the field can benefit the larger community as well as the policy making for the government. So thank you very much for offering that, and we are once again very happy and pleased to have you on board today, and we look forward to continuing this conversation forward. So with that, I would like us to move to our last segment, which is basically first, I would invite Dr. Aisha Jamshed, Country Director WHH, once again to share her closing remarks. And then we also received a video clip. Unfortunately, the State Minister for Climate Change, Ms. Taj Gul, could not join us during the meeting, but she was very kind to share a video message with us. So we would also play that at the end. But right now, I would like to offer the floor to Aisha. Aisha, please take it from here. Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you so much, Saleha. I'm sorry, I'm just moving while I'm talking. My laptop is my battery is about to expire. No, thank you, everybody. I would specifically like to thank all the panelists, Julian specifically, Dr. Abid for his time. I would like to thank all the presenters. I think one of the key takeaways for us here is that we are all on the same page and we all agree that this matter, hunger, food and nutrition security, cannot be tackled in silos. So I think what has come out very prominently is the need to work together, to collaborate together, to make sure that we are all supporting each other in the various, in our individual capacities, to make sure that we can help the communities of Pakistan, help the economy of Pakistan, help the people of Pakistan, and also look at how we can then further support these initiatives at the global level. Another very interesting thing for us is that there is commitment, there is a lot of knowledge. I think we do not need to look outside for all the information that is really there. We have very good ideas that are already here. We have some very good practices that have been tested. There are pilots that are available. I think now is the right time for us to move together, to look, to handhold each other, to make sure that we are all putting in our bit at this point in time, to make sure that everything that is required for Pakistan, everyone is giving in their best, be it the business sector, be it academia, be it the civil society, be it the donors, be it the government. And I think it is becoming increasingly important that all of us make sure that we are getting regular exchanges from each other. And I think on behalf of the Alliance, I would like to re-endorse our commitment that we are going to make sure that we keep such collaborative efforts going forward. We will be making sure that we reach out to individuals, all other stakeholders, that this interaction does not stop here. We as the Alliance would like to give our commitment to support and take Dr. Abid up on his very kind offer. I think that is something we would want to do. We would want to work with businesses again. And one of the key takeaways for us also is that the food systems are very important, obviously. And since we know that this is a global movement that is happening, this very nicely transits into the next session that we plan to have. We would be grateful if all of us you could join again. The attendees, the panelists, the participants, we would like to continue working with the group that we have here so that we do not lose out on the momentum that is there. I'm not going to take a lot of your time. I'm going to thank you again for your participation, for your support, for all the comments. We will share the responses to the questions if there are any that have not been answered. The presentations will be shared, the reports will be shared. Anything else that we could do, you have our email IDs. We would be glad if anybody would like to reach out to us. We will be more than happy to support in any way possible. Thank you once again. Have a nice evening, have a good night, have a pleasant day, depending on which part of the world you are at the moment. And thank you for your attention and contribution too. Thank you, Ji. Over to you, Salia.
Thank you so much, Aisha. So like I mentioned earlier, we have a brief message from the Honorable Zertaj Gul, Minister of State for Climate Change. So we would like to play that for everyone, and that would conclude the meeting. Thank you for your participation once again, and we would now like to play the video. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Zertaj Gul Wazir, Minister of Climate Change. Just like to talk about the Global Hunger Index. It's about zero hunger in the world and for sustainable food systems. Like to mention the efforts of Alliance 2015 strategic network of 8 European non-government and non-profit organizations engage in humanitarian and development action in Pakistan, especially too. It report says that Pakistan ranks 88th out of 107. Not alarming, but not very welcoming, I think. So we need to do more efforts, and especially due to the pandemic, as world recession is there and there are direct threats to the food securities in the world and especially in Pakistan too, since Pakistan rank in one of the most vulnerable country to the climate change. It ranked from 5th to 7th. It has a direct threat of the climate change and very vulnerable, and this global warming which is actually affecting the climate pattern, and the climate pattern actually are direct threat to the food securities in Pakistan. We are taking much initiative, especially I like to mention the climate change ministry. Prime Minister Imran Khan, as you know, is much aware and is one of the top 5 leaders in the world who talks about climate change. He wants to address, because as I mentioned that climate change has directly impact on the food securities, and food securities again going towards the hunger in the world. The first initiative, which is actually the 10 billion tree tsunami, that we want to plant trees, 10 billion in Pakistan to cover our or recover our forest cover. Then is the Clean Green Pakistan movement, behavior change, one of the biggest by the Prime Minister Imran Khan. Successfully we are working on that. The third one is the most effective one, I would like to say, that is the ecosystem restoration. We are working on the ecosystem restoration. One of the biggest in Pakistan, where the threats for the food securities, for the biodiversities, wildlife, flora and fauna going to be banned there, and कोई वहाँ पे शिकार भी नहीं होगा, protected area का initiative है. And the other one which I like to, because it's more relevant with the zero hunger initiatives in the world, that is actually the climate smart agriculture by the Ministry of Climate Change. We started it, that is with the FAO, and that seeds or that smart agriculture we are going to have in Pakistan. It's going to be water efficient, and heat resistance in Pakistan. Since we have a very sort of climatic patterns in Pakistan, they are changing, they are more harsh, and as we want the sustainable agriculture in Pakistan, because 70% of our people are actually based in Pakistan on our agriculture, and our economy is actually water or agrarian. So for the first time, my ministry has taken such taken such initiatives, because we are aware of the danger which is coming upon Pakistan and on the world too. Pakistan is playing its role. It's an underdeveloped country. We have many other urgencies. For example, health emergencies. We have law and order situation. We have border issues. We are working on all other those fields, but at a time and simultaneously we are actually working on our food securities, food ministry. We are having chairs with all of the ministries. Before us, in the 70 years, unfortunately, governments were not aware, or only they were thinking about the election campaigns to win the election. But I think I'm proud that I'm part of the Prime Minister Imran Khan's cabinet, and his vision, जो कि फीते काटने का नहीं सोचते, वोट बैंक का नहीं सोचते, इलेक्शन का नहीं सोचते, but he wants कि पाकिस्तान के अंदर पॉवर्टी एलिवेशन हो जाए, हंगर इंडेक्स कम हो जाए, बच्चों की मेल न्यूट्रिशन के इश्यूज़ को ख़त्म किया जाए, पनागाहें खोली जाएं, लंगर खाने खोले जाएं, रियासत मदीना के तर्ज के ऊपर चला जाए, जिसमें तमाम लोगों के लिए इंसाफ हो, और उसमें एक जो हमारी मिनिस्ट्री का रोल है, जिसमें हम फूड सिक्योरिटीज़ को डायरेक्ट थ्रेट है क्लाइमेट से, उसको हम एड्रेस कर रहे हैं. सो क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट एग्रीकल्चर, क्लीन ग्रीन पाकिस्तान का इनिशिएटिव्स, 10 billion tree tsunami, ecosystem restorations are one of the top green agendas, which makes me proud. अभी वो implementation status में, and I'm sure कि जब हम अपना tenure पूरा करेंगे तो हम अपनी ये चीज़ें बेहतर कर सके होंगे. Thank you जी.
Okay, thank you so much everyone once again for joining. And like I mentioned earlier, this concludes the session. Thank you very much for your participation, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with all of you. Take care and Allah Hafiz.
Thank you.
Allah Hafiz. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allah Hafiz.